In 10 years, half of the people currently working for NASA will be replaced by the students graduating today. In no time at all, we'll see today's students filling roles within the growing private aerospace and space research industries, enthusiastically taking on all the new roles that are being created today. If you're here, it means you likely agree that there are few goals as integral to human progress as the study and settlement of Mars. But many of you may not be thinking about the uniqueness of the endeavor in comparison to similar past efforts like the moon landing. What makes the Mars mission so unique is not just the transformative potential for human life as we know it. It's the generational core aspect of the mission, with one of the longest timelines of any exploration effort in history. The long timeline involved makes the students of today a critical part of sustained talent and political support for the effort going forward. I'm one of those students, and today I want to show you who we are, what we're up to, and talk about what you guys can do to help inspire the next generation. Hi, my name is Olivia Scharfman. I'm currently a sophomore at Yale University studying math and physics. And like many of my peers, I've been enthralled by the mysterious red planet that could one day be our home. Let's start with who we are talking about. Okay, so who is the next generation? First, I want to ask you to picture the college students that you think might be interested in pursuing Mars today. And then I want to ask you who the most instrumental figure in bringing us to the moon was for the first time. It wasn't someone from NASA, it wasn't an engineering student, it was John Kennedy. The next generation of Mars exploration will be guided not just by the engineers and computer science experts, but by our public policy makers, our lawyers, and our politicians. You probably pictured an engineering student when I asked you to think of college students who might be interested in Mars. One of the most common misconceptions and mistakes in outreaching to students is the widespread belief that student passion for Mars is limited to engineering students, when in fact, the dream of Mars has a brighter and more diverse appeal to students of all ages studying all concentrations at every educational institution in the world. At Yale, a college with no major in aerospace engineering, the largest STEM organization on campus is the Yale Undergraduate Aerospace Association. But contrary to its designation as an engineering organization, only 60% of the students are engineers. 40% are studying things like economics, political science, biology, and pure sciences such as mathematics and physics. And of those students, interest in Mars is overwhelming. Not a single student in the Yale Undergraduate Aerospace Association said that they weren't interested or passionate about Mars, and not a single student thought they wouldn't see us get here in our lifetime. This composition of students and their enthusiasm for Mars is reflected similarly at many other schools and shows us something extraordinarily important about who could be instrumental to Mars efforts in the future. Now, why does that matter? Well, who's going to the red planet? I'm sure you guys all saw The Martian. It was set in 2035. The real Mark Watney is in college right now. Now to talk about the younger kids. Think back to the first time you became excited about space exploration. It might have been in college or high school, but chances are you were much younger. Chances are you were watching a launch for the first time on television or reading about it in the newspaper. Chances are it was the first time you saw Star Wars or read Ender's Game. Think about it. Every day another child sees something that changes their interests for life and drives them to pursue this as their dream. These children have even more confidence than the college students today that we will colonize Mars this century. If you ask a young child, in fact, if they will see us colonize Mars in their lifetime, they say, of course, how could we not? They're watching the news, they see what's happening, and they think it's going to happen in the next 5 years. In fact, they're sure of it. And the hopefulness of today's youth will be absolutely instrumental in our productivity tomorrow. Well, why is that? Policy support. It matters. If you're in this room on the public policy track, you probably know how much red tape and bureaucracy there is involved in space exploration today. If we spend half of our energy focusing on inspiring today's youth, we won't run into those problems in 20 years. In 20 years, the red tape will have disappeared because support and desire for the colonization of Mars will be so universal that we won't run into any disagreements. Back to college students. What are we doing about our passion? There are some students here, but most of you guys have probably been out of school for a few years. I want to talk about 3 levels: locally, within schools, between schools, and on a global scale. Locally, I'm going to talk about what my school is doing. We have another Yale student in the audience who said that the Yale Undergraduate Aerospace Association didn't actually exist when he was in school. There's been a resurgence of interest in space at many colleges, and Yale is one of them. So YUAA does a lot of things, but really it does 3 things. It does projects, they do PR work, and they do outreach. Projects are probably the most exciting part. We do a lot of things. We do 3 or 4 projects each year, and we have project teams for each of those projects. Incoming students get to pick what team they want to be on. In the past, we've done advanced unmanned aerial vehicles, quadcopters, rockets, which are my favorite. We've done multi-stage rockets. We've done payload rockets. That was what I worked on last year. We had a rocket fly to 10,000 feet to collect bacterial samples from the atmosphere, and then we sequenced the genomes of those bacteria back at our labs. It was an absolutely amazing experience, and I think a method that will be instrumental in space exploration in the future. So it's important that students learn how to see those things up close before they enter the industry. This year, we're continuing work on our CUBE satellite project. In 3 years, it will be actually launching into space, which is unbelievable to me. Turbojet engine project, I'll be working on the hybrid fuel rocket, and we're also doing a high altitude air balloon for the 2nd time in our history. There you can see there's a picture of one of our launches. It's pretty incredible. These things fly to 10,000 feet. The other 2 things we do are perhaps more important. We have a PR team that doesn't just campaign to get members for the YUAA. It also campaigns to raise awareness for space exploration and to get kids excited about space. Space is one of the easiest topics to get excited about. I'm sure, if you're here, you understand there's a certain magic to space exploration, to Mars exploration. There's a certain mystery. And I think that YUAA does a really good job of reaching out to students who may not otherwise be interested in an engineering organization and raising passion for that subject. We also do a lot of outreach to younger students, which is really what this presentation is about. We visit local high schools and middle schools and present on what we're doing, what our projects are, and try to get kids excited at a young age. There's also a Yale Undergraduate Rover Association I'm not a member of, but it was awesome. It's founded last year to compete in the Mars Society's University Rover Challenge. They were extraordinarily successful, as I can tell. These are some pictures of their rover. But it's just a bunch of students who are really excited about Mars, and they're at every college in the country. And I think it's very easy to forget how much support that you guys all have underneath you. But in 5 years, these people will be out working in the industry, and you can hire them, and they're going to bring that energy and they're going to bring that passion, because they didn't do this to get a grade. They did it because that's what they want to do for the rest of their lives. It's interesting to them, and that is an underrated truth to student efforts and student involvement in space exploration. Between schools, I'm also really excited to announce that there's a lot of growing collaboration going on, collaboration on engineering projects and shared knowledge. A lot of schools do this already, but Yale has really just begun to work with other schools like Columbia, City College, and the University of New Haven to bring shared knowledge and possibly work on future engineering projects together. I think this is really important. Collaboration goes a long way towards increasing the success of any effort. And I love seeing the interaction between students who all jointly care deeply about one thing. There's also competitions, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about later, but they're really spurring school-to-school interaction. Internationally, this is what I'm most excited about. Internationally, there's a group called SEDS, which most of you probably know about it. How many of you guys know about SEDS or were in chapters? Only a couple. All right. So there's 60 chapters around the world: Canada, India, Israel, Mexico, Nigeria. It's pretty much spans the entire world, and it's all composed of students who are deeply interested in colonizing Mars, interested in exploring space, and SEDS brings those people together. So what do? They have projects. They do rocketry competitions like the one that our rocket teams compete in. They have a student business pitch competition, which comes back to the idea of involving people who are not just engineers or scientists, but involving people who may be more interested in public policy or entrepreneurship, because these people are going to be just as instrumental in the journey to explore Mars. There's a satellite competition for the engineering students. It's about harnessing solar power in space, and they're doing work at the Mars Desert Research Station, which is, the Mars Society's research station, which I think is the most exciting thing because when young students collaborate with a place like the Mars Society, I think good things will happen. I'm really excited to see what comes out of that. Follow that if you get the chance. They also connect students to students. They do space talks, which are run over Google. They are Google Hangouts on-air series that offer students the opportunity to learn from and interact with space industry experts and each other. I don't know if you guys have used Google Hangouts before. It's really interesting. You can talk to individual people as well as listen to a speaker all at once. And it really limits the barrier to entry on what people can do, because it's hard sometimes for students to afford to travel to conferences. And the ability to bring speakers right into students' own homes is really tremendous. They also have Council of Chapters meetings and a mentor-mentee program called SEDS Orbit, where they send out emails to try and get mentors and mentees talking to each other. And I think that that's really important because the more generations interact with each other, the more the younger generation knows where they're going to be headed and what their aim should be. The Mars Society also does quite a bit for students. There's the University Rover Challenge, which I mentioned earlier. There's a European Rover Challenge, which again spans internationally, and there's a Youth Challenge. And if you're involved in any of these, I just want to say thank you for bringing these things to the children of today, because the next generation really is who is going to be instrumental in Mars exploration. There's Red Planet Radio. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but it's a thing that the Mars Society does basically to create podcasts of maybe Robert Zubrin talking or other experts, and brings it to the students. It's kind of similar to what SEDS does with the Google Hangouts, but just with podcasts. And there's also a Mars Simulation Project, which is free software that you can download for your computer and design your own Mars research station, which I find incredibly interesting. And this is the most important part. That was your update on what the people who are going to live in Mars in the future are up to right now. What can the older generation do to encourage and foster continued development? Well, it's no secret that competitions go a long way. There are already a lot of competitions being run, but I would really love to see more of them and to make sure that they continue surviving, because I think people often underestimate how important they are to what students are doing. Peter Diamandis' Ansari X Prize is essentially what started the new wave of private industry. It was the prize, if you guys don't know about it, to build a reliable, reusable, privately financed and manned spaceship capable of suborbital flight. It was won by the Spaceship One in 2004. And that was the launch that I watched that inspired me when I was 7 years old to pursue space for the rest of my life. Mars Society already does these things, already runs the competition. But I'm sure a lot of you aren't necessarily from Mars Society or from other organizations. And what you guys can do to support people who are in competitions is to go to your local colleges and talk to their rocket teams. They're not going to reach out to you. A lot of students don't know about networks that exist. They don't know who to call. But if you have the chance to reach out to a local college's rocket team or a local high school's first robotics team, they're starving for mentorship. They're not just starving for money, they're starving for people to help them build. And it's really hard to learn how to do something on your own without someone with more experience to teach you. The other thing is internships and monetary support. Internships through OSSI get students hired at every branch of NASA. And space grants are for students looking for space-related internships or projects. And there's a lot of money going out there, but there's not enough because students are unable to afford unpaid internships often. Students are unable to afford to do the projects that they want to do. And those are the hands-on projects that will prepare them to actually work and make these things possible within the next 10 years. There's also SEDS that's doing a lot for that right now. Jeff Bezos, I don't know if you guys heard of this, just donated $250,000 in his winnings from the Prize for Commercial Space Achievements to SEDS, and hopefully a lot of that money will be going to students like me and other students in aerospace clubs around the world who are working to build their projects and maybe can't afford it. But what you can do is hire young students for the summer if you can. Even unpaid internships, anything. Students are really starving for experience, and I think that reaching out to your local colleges and high school will go the longest way towards preparing the next generation. So actually reach out to local colleges and call their career centers. I know it sounds crazy, but just do it. There will be kids who are interested in working for you, doing even an unpaid internship, and it will give them experience that will last a lifetime. And the last and most important thing is to remember to talk. Communications and media go the longest way possible towards inspiring people. If you're on the public policy track, you probably already know that. Our numbers are increasing. The students interested in Mars is increasing. I talked earlier that this is a new wave of interest in space, and I've watched it happen as I grew up. Why? Well, there's media influence, like the private space industry news. You know, you can hardly go a day without looking at Google News and seeing something about SpaceX or Blue Origins, Masten, Virgin Galactic. It's impossible. It's inescapable. And that's bringing the information to students, and that's getting students interested. And the more the media can do to generate interest is really what we need. There's fiction, like The Martian, Interstellar, and Gravity. That's getting kids excited. All of a sudden, there are all these new space movies coming out, and they're coming out because there is this new wave of interest in space. But what you should do, if you're not a movie producer or a journalist, is come to conferences and schools and talk. If you have a free weekend, see if there's a local college who wants to hear about what you're doing, about what your job is. No matter where you work, there will be students at your local colleges who want to hear about what you do, who are desperate for it. And if you reach out, they will be receptive. And there's a chance it could change their lives. And I think that that's, you know, very little input energy for something that could make a large impact in the future. Also, publish your research, not just with scientific terms, but also in layman's terms. Publish it so that students can read it, so that students can share articles. Send it to your local, you know, journalists. I don't know how many of you actually do research, but oftentimes the esoteric language can be a huge barrier for students who may not have the scientific background to understand and be interested in what's going on. But they care just as much about the advancement as others. In terms of conferences you can come to, I highly recommend Space Vision. That's the conference that SEDS does every year. It's absolutely incredible. You get students from all over the world coming together in one room, hundreds of students, to listen to industry experts and to meet each other. If any of you guys have...
10 seconds, 5 seconds. Where's the next SEDS conference?
The next SEDS conference is at Purdue University. If you have the chance to go to a conference like that, you will feel the energy in the room. It is palpable. It is unbelievable to watch all of these people who are all so passionate about Mars come together and talk to each other. Please come if you can. It's at Purdue University. Check it out. If not, come to another conference. Kids want to hear from you. Kids want to meet you, and it'll be an incredible experience for you. It's very easy to forget when you've been doing something for a long time how abundant the energy is, how abundant the support is. And going there, I think, will be an amazing experience if you haven't been talking to students in a long time. So, wrap up. We're all here because we believe in the journey to Mars, and I'm here to tell you that our only hope is the next generation. And our hope for the brightest future is the kids who are in school today. And I urge you to do as much as you can to reach out to these people because it will aid our mission in the future. And it could possibly change these kids' lives and the lives of their kids and their kids' kids. If you actually care about the journey to Mars, focus some of your energy on the kids who will actually be going there. Yes?
When is the next SEDS at Purdue?
Purdue, it's, I think, November 4th, but I could be wrong. I think it's November 3rd through 5th.
This year?
This year.
Wow.
Did you mention what does SEDS stand for?
Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. It's an entirely student-run organization. They get a lot of support from, there are like adults involved. Peter Diamandis, who started it at MIT many, many years ago, is still intensely involved. But it's mostly a student-run organization, which is one of the things that's so wonderful about it.
Something I did a few years ago was as a NASA, what made it key and what got a lot of people interested was that it was NASA sponsored, jointly NASA ran. And the end goal, you learned about space and engineering. That was the overall course. It was an online course. It was 4 months. But the optional final project was for you to take all your knowledge and develop a proposal with it.
Yeah.
There definitely needs to be more, and then the winners and runner-ups were all invited to Goddard and got to meet the scientists and people that did the lectures and got an in-depth tour of the facility. There needs to be more of that. The fact that NASA can give you a direct hand in something like a competition, and like it's more of like, and it was still like a do it on your own kind of thing, but NASA was there to help you, or the assigned staff that were part of this program were there to help you and give you insight, because using their experience is like really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would love to see more of that in the future.
Like, and it promoted people to build mission quality grade proposals, which is what I ended up doing with
Students
my team.
are widely underestimated.
Yeah.
They're pretty capable at doing
Really
some
cool.
amazing
There
things.
needs to be more of that.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah?
2 questions. One, who is your CubeSat flying on?
Who is my CubeSat flying? I don't know. I'm not on the CubeSat team. But I can ask and get back to you later.
And what level of industry mentorship or involvement is there with the Yale Undergraduate Aerospace?
Very little. We have some sponsorships, but actually, getting engineers to, come and talk to us is a little more difficult. We do a lot of efforts and outreach into getting people to come speak to us. But with respect to colleges who may not have those kinds of resources or who may not know to reach out, it's really important that the industry goes the other way and makes the effort to reach out to students. Okay. I had 5 for questions.
Have students considered studying abroad for agencies or upcoming firms in Europe?
Not for upcoming agencies that I know of, but I know a lot of students who headed to CERN, students who are very interested in Mars exploration, who are doing physics.
Okay.
But otherwise, I don't know a lot about international travel. A lot of our astrophysics students, some kids who are in Yale Aerospace, will head down to South America to do astrophysics research, astronomy work, which I think is incredibly interesting. All right. On and rolling.
Thank you.